friends. Today you might call us a gang, but we were friends back then. Lived on 14th and Valete Street. The Freedom House moved in on 15th in between Valete and McKinley. So of course they moved in our neighborhood. We had to go check them out. So went around there and ended up in a confrontation with a guy named Dwight Benning. Dwight was in the Commandos, and he and I went chest to chest, and Father Groppe stepped in, and Dwight, during the course of civil rights, turned out to be the best person I've encountered. We went through a lot of confrontations together, and we went through them back to back.
What did the Youth Council do?
What did we do? I mean, there are many different levels that you can talk on. You can talk on a legislative level in terms of what was it you sought to accomplish through the legislative process. But to me, the significance of it was, what did it do for the community? What did it do for all the anger? I mean, at that point in time, you got to remember, you got Daniel Bell being killed, you got police officers killing African Americans, sticking guns in their hands. You've got the elevator rides where you go in on the elevator with two officers and you're innocent, and by the time you get to the top floor, you're pleading guilty and you've got bloody nose and bruised and banged and beaten. You've got African Americans walking down the street who are being stopped for no apparent reason with a prevailing philosophy in the police department that says, if you stop enough black people, you'll find a gun, you'll find a knife. So you've got police officers stopping you unwarrantedly in search of. And you have those who stop you unwarrantedly in search of and plant on you. So the broader social context is what I think you also have to look at, which is the Vietnam War was going on at that time. The draft was in. So, and where were they drafting people? I mean, our feelings were a substantial amount of those people came from central cities. They were a minority. They were put in NAM, and they were put on the front lines, okay? So here you are where you're going to be forced to fight for a government that you feel is oppressive, discriminatory in nature, and you've got to fight to continue that government going, or you have to stand and fight that government and say what you're doing to us is morally wrong.
How did the Commandos come about?
You know, I really don't know. There was a guy who preceded me named Fortune Humphrey, and him and Father Groppe had a relationship. I mean, they were tight, and a group developed under that out of the Youth Council that came to be known as the Commandos. So when I encountered it, the group was essentially already formed. Through time, there was an evolution in leadership.
Talk about Freedom House.
Freedom House. Freedom House was the place where we all went. As a matter of fact, I've got some pictures I'd like to show you if we can ever get an interruption, but it was a gathering place. It was just like St. Boniface. St. Boniface, we all came there, we rallied, there was camaraderie, there was motivational speaking, and then we went out and confronted the city over the issue of racism, discrimination in housing. So it was a gathering place, a place where we brainstormed. A lot of cases, some of us, it was the only place where we got a meal. And that's what it was. It was our place where we got together and talked about those issues that were pertinent to us at that time and strategized on what it was we intended to do about it.
How did you feel when it burned down?
I was there, actually. I've got a picture of that. That was what I wanted to show you. We were coming back off a protest, and we were on a bus. And as we approached the Freedom House, I can't remember, something caused the disturbance, and people started running. We come out of the bus and we started running into the Freedom House, and as I recall, I think the police shot out the lights or something. There was some shooting going on, and we were trapped inside, and they were screaming, "Stay in the house, stay in the house, everybody stay in the house." And then all of a sudden there was some tear gas that accidentally fell through the ceiling, I guess, I don't know, came into the house. So you can't stay in the house with that. So of course we all ran out of the door and dispersed, you know, in other people's homes and so forth. But and then the fire department came, and the police wouldn't allow the fire department to put out the fire because they said there were snipers in the area. The only people we saw with guns were police officers. So we weren't that much emotionally attached to the structure, but the concept of a freedom house where we could all gather. And we knew that, you know, Gropp was going to come up with a way, because Gropp was a tremendous person. And I think today he just does not get the kind of respect and acknowledgement in the black community that he deserves. So we knew that Gropp would find us another place, and we would continue, that was not going to be the end of the struggle.
We will get the picture later.
Got you.
Okay, so you know that. So how often did the group march?
You know, I don't recall. It seemed like to me, as I look back, it was an everyday, ongoing activity. I mean, either you were marching, you were being arrested, you were going to jail, you were getting out on bond, you were going back to marching. I mean, it was like, you know, we're in this thing for the long struggle, and, you know, if it takes filling up the jails, we're going to fill up the jails, but we're not going to stop until this issue is resolved.
What were the issues?
Well, again, they're multi-level issues. You got to remember, at that point in time, I'm probably 18, 19 years old. For me, the issue would have been being forced into the armed services to fight for this country while this country was treating us as second-class citizens. The issue of police harassment and police abuse under Chief Breyer with a lifetime appointment from Mayor Meyer. I think Mike McGee said it pretty succinctly when he said that the police are viewed as an occupying army in the central city. So if you're occupied, you know all the suppressive, subversive kinds of things that people use or systems use to suppress people. So most African Americans, here, remember this, the migration had taken place from the South into the North. And so many of us were teenagers or thereabout, and therefore had not experienced the suppression of the South, the racism, the double standard, and so forth. So we weren't accustomed to that. I remember when I first got involved marching, my mother, who, I don't know if I should say this publicly or not, but she was a welfare recipient, but took out a life insurance policy on me because she told me, she said, Prentice, that's white folks' business. You don't get involved in that. They will kill you. Well, who's afraid of Big Bad Wolf? I mean, was my attitude. You know, they're treating us wrong. They're abusing us. You know, they're counterfeiting evidence on us. You know, my brother came back from the Air Force, never will forget. Brother in the Air Force, brother in the Army. One in the Air Force is 1 year older than me, the one in the Army is 2 years older than me. My brother comes back from Europe in the Air Force, decides he wants to buy my mom a house, then he's going back to England. Took her up on Capitol Drive. There's a house out there with a for sale sign in front of it, and he goes up in uniform and he knocks on the door and he inquires about the house. And the lady tells him very bluntly, we don't sell to niggas. Our neighbors would be upset with us if we sold to niggas. Here's a man who's fighting for this country in a war, yet he can't come back here and buy his mother a home. It was moments like that that made me decide I was not going to service, not for the country, but for black people.
I know that you marched. Were you prepared for the hatred that the marchers had?
That wasn't really the question for me. The question for me was, were those racist white people ready for the anger that we felt? Because, you know, I said then and I'll say now, you had two different schools of thought. You had Martin Luther King with nonviolent. You can urinate on us, you can pour salt on us, you can do whatever you want to do. We're going to ball up and we're just going to take it. On the other hand, you had people like H. Rap Brown who said, burn, baby, burn. You know, and then you had the black Muslims who said, you know what, it's all good. You don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. But if you mess with me, we have a problem. That was the philosophy of the Commandos. We're not going to mess with you. We are going to protect these people behind us, okay? But no, we are not nonviolent. If you attack us, we will not ball up in a little knot and let you do whatever you want to do. We have dignity, we have pride, and we're demanding that you respect that.
What kind of goals that you set did you achieve as a result of the marches and protests?
Well, you know, people talk about the riot, quote unquote, that took place in Milwaukee. I look at it and I say, you know, without someone like Father Grappi to siphon off that steam and that energy and that anger, you would have had a real riot here. So in some aspects, you achieve the relieving of the anger, the explosiveness that this country experienced, but you didn't experience it here in Milwaukee because there was a valve to kind of let that out and a legitimate confrontation over what our disagreements are. So, and I think that's basically what a lot of us wanted, was to be heard that what you're doing to us and the price you're demanding for it, that we serve in your service, is unjust. You need to know that we feel that way. Now, many of us, you know, I didn't go to service. I told them, put me in jail. I mean, wasn't any place I hadn't been accustomed to going anyway, so, you know, it was a mute issue for me. But you had many who left the country, went to Canada, okay, fled, some went down to Cuba, all right? It was this feeling of, I refuse to comply. I refuse to be subjected to this kind of abuse and then stand in defense of your country. So just to have that heard and to be able to know that there were other people around you who felt just as strongly about it was, I don't know if you want to call it personal therapy or, you know, what you want to call it, but that in itself was a relief. Now, a byproduct of that energy was the federal government came to the realization that you cannot just discriminate and treat these people secondhand and be oblivious to what their issues are. And so as a net result of it, there seemed to be some repentance on the federal level to say, well, let's fund some programs to help these people. Let's give these people an opportunity to help themselves. So that being a byproduct of the release of anger and the system's apparent recognition that, you know, I mean, the institutions of slavery cannot continue. I mean, these people just will not accept that.
What do you want people to remember about that event?
That we were unafraid. That we were unafraid. Today, I look at what's happened to the black community. Fear. We know what the problems are, and back then, I mean, we could say legitimately that white racism caused the multitude of the problems that we were confronted with. Today, we have to assume some responsibility ourselves. And assuming that responsibility might mean that you have to confront the dope dealer on your block and say, you can't sell dope to my little girl, you can't sell dope to my neighbors. I mean, that's not acceptable here. And to have all these gray-headed, bald-headed people standing together. See, because the difference between the gang and us is that they say if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. And us older citizens, even though we're, you know, up in age, need to have that same sense of unity for the community. A lot of the problem emanated from back in the day when we said there are children having children. We as a community, for whatever reasons, did not deal successfully with that issue. This is a byproduct. People ask me, Prentice, how do you feel about what you guys achieved in terms of open housing legislation? Today, I say, you know, I don't know that Martin Luther King, H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X fought for the black race to be in the condition it is today. That's not what we fought for, so that our children could sell drugs to their parents, so that our children could sell drugs to the kids in the neighborhood, so that the seniors would become afraid of the children themselves. This is not the world that we fought for. We fought for equality and opportunity, that we could not be denied based simply because of the color of our skin. That's the world we fought for. It's not the world that we have today. So those are just some of my feelings about it.
Well, but they're as valid as anything else. I mean, have race relations improved since then, you think?
Have race relations improved? It's an interesting question because, I mean, if I would say no to that, you'd have a whole bunch of African Americans who benefited from open housing legislation, who live in Mequon, who live in Fox Point, who could say, oh no, it's improved. I mean, look at where I'm at today. I couldn't live north of Capitol Drive back then. But, you know, is it better for everyday African Americans? I don't know. Milwaukee is still the most segregated city in this country. So in light of that, I don't know how we can say that it is improved. How bad could it have really been if that's an improvement? You know, I mean, that's the same thing we fought for 40 years ago. So, you know, I'll say there are some white people that get along with some black people better. There's some Jewish people that get along with some white people better. I mean, there's some Hispanics that get along with African Americans better. But overall, if we're the most segregated city in the country, I don't know how those relationships could actually be better.
You mentioned earlier that you and the police had a couple of run-ins. Were any of those as a result of your protest? Were you ever arrested?
Oh, constantly. You know, you make me bring up a point I shouldn't bring up. I'm gonna do.
No, no such thing you shouldn't bring up.
Today you have people who claim, I was there, I was leading, I was marching, I was, okay. You've even had people come to me and say, Prentice, tell these people I was part of that process. Well, I can't say you weren't because there were so many people involved at a given point in time, but when there were 20 of us facing thousands of angry white people on the South Side, I don't recall seeing you there. But I'll tell you what, if you want to validate it, go pull your police rap sheet, because Martin Luther King even had one. If you participated, you went to jail. That's your validation. If you have no rap sheet, I can't speak for you, my friend.
Okay, but speak for yourself and tell me about your experiences.
Oh man, I was arrested so many times. We used to actually kind of think of it as fun. You know, I mean, we knew people. If you get in that march and you go across that bridge, somebody's going to jail tonight. All right? So you can be at the front of the line because they're going to jail.
Let me ask you.
Okay. She's so busy, she better get it.
You're tethered to this.
Oh, I'm not going to worry about it because the answering service will catch it.
All right.
If she doesn't catch it.
Okay.
Well, damn, which one is it? There.
That's it. Okay. Tell me again about you being arrested.
Arrested on numerous occasions, regular basis. If you got on the bus or if you marched across the bridge, you knew someone was going to jail because there's thousands of white people waiting over for you. There's a line of police officers, and the police officers are going to arrest the dark-skinned, not the light-skinned. So, you know, if you're at the front of that pack, the paddy wagons alongside, you're going in them. We used to actually compete for who was going to be at the front of the line, knowing you were going to go to jail, knowing we were going to come and get you out on bail, knowing you were going to have to go in front of Judge Chris Sir from the hanging judge. But it was a matter of standing up for what you believed in. So if you're afraid to go to jail, don't come. If you're afraid of being in a confrontation where you're substantially outnumbered, don't come. Those were things that people like me, Dwight Benning, Tommy Lee, who's dead, Jimmy Pierce, who's dead, we weren't afraid of that. We were afraid of continuing to live in a segregated city as an oppressed people with a demand that we serve this country. We were afraid of that. And so the only opportunity to express yourself was to go on that march. And going on that march could mean very well, you were going to jail. So we're prepared to do that.
Sounds like you folks had.
I'm sorry, when I
That's
think
right.
I made an adjustment here and this fell out. So
That's all right. I'll put that once you get it straight.
With that.
Your last statement was fine.
Okay.
You're ready.
Speak.
Okay. Sounds like there was great camaraderie in the group. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, back then in those days, the good old days, right? black pride, black power. Those were positive affirmations that were being expressed contrary to what had been said about black people. We'll never stick together. Yeah, okay, you want something done right, go to the white man. Contrary to that, there was a sense of black pride. That was the time of the afro, when I had hair. But I mean, that was the time of the afro, the dashiki. You know, that's when rapping really started with poetry, talking about that social condition. So yes, there was a sense of harmony, of being together, that what affected one black person affected all black people, and that we needed to stand unified. The only division was whether or not this confrontation would be a nonviolent confrontation or a violent confrontation. The other pressing issue would have been who will lead this confrontation with the system. In Milwaukee, it happened to be a stellar white Catholic priest named Father James Groppe, who had the fortitude to say that injustice is injustice, and I can be white and speak for the needs of blacks. I will lead you, whereas other black ministerial people, political people did not have the internal fortitude to say that wrong is wrong. And so today, and it's a shaming of us all, we tend to want to look at Val Phillips and say, you were the spearhead. She was part of the leadership. But the one who went into battle every day was Father James E. Groppe, and I was there. So we can't just, because of his skin color, which is just as discriminatory as we fought against, have him dismissed or disappear as we talk about the evolution of the black man in America. He was a viable part in this city.
Is there anything I haven't talked to you about that you wanted to talk about?
No, that would be the current conditions of African American community, and that's a whole challenge, and that's a whole nother.
But you've already said a couple of things about that in the conversation, but if there's something else you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm gonna let that go, because that's just there, and they gotta deal with it. I'm old, I'm retired, shit, I did mine. Everybody stand up, do yours. What can I say?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Let me grab the mic, sir. Thank you very much.
All right.